Welcome, everybody, to the Collective Season 1 Jury Roundtable. We're joined by some of our jury members. Other jury members are checking in the chat and chatting with people about the game as well. But we have our finalists, Keaton and Minor. Should we just dive right in and start talking about them? If anyone wants to start off.
I'm very whelmed by this final two.
Whelmed.
Whelmed. No,
Explain
no
your
over or
whelmed.
under, just whelmed. Okay, so I'll start off, right? So, because at the end of the day, those two did what the 18 of us could not do. The two people within their circle, and then the other 16, and the other four hopeful circles, hoping to get to that final two, right? They were objectively able to do what most of us could not. I felt a bit estranged from them as opposed to some of the other final twos or other circles that made it to that end game. I felt as though that I never really had all that close of a relationship with either one of the two. So I'm gonna try to be as fair and as respectful as a juror as I can be with the limited information I have, especially as one of the first inductees into the jury. I got sent home before I guess all the from what the hell I see in the crazier rounds, like the 4-3 and the double ties. So I wasn't there for all that. So maybe my fellow jurors here may have more context than I do.
Lake, you go.
Oh, you had the crown on your head. Well, at the start of the game, I looked at the game and, I was like, I am a Lily stan. And to be a Lily stan, I had to be an Evelyn stan. And by being an Evelyn stan, because, I was a diehard Evelyn stan, obviously, it gained me favor with Keaton. And it wasn't for any pre-existing relationships. That was how it happened. But anyways, working with Keaton in this game, it showed me that Keaton's navigated pretty well in this game. And, he may have not known who he wanted as his second for a long time. Chloe and Minor were kind of up there for him, but he didn't even need that. In my opinion, he relied on other people and other relationships pretty fast. I feel like he was one of the early ones to kind of reach out and get outer connections with other circles, and it really benefited him this game. He won some good comps at some good times. I certainly saved him a round or two. He showed back favor. I'm sure. I think all of us have saved Keaton at one point. I'm pretty sure all three of us at least once.
I'll have to check back my doc. I don't think I particularly saved him at any point, but I've never been opposed to it either. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
I make it obvious. I want to vote Keaton here. Obviously, I hear both out in the situation. I think Minor has a game to tell. I'm not excluding that whatsoever. I just think Keaton's got the winning game to tell. So
I think, when I'm objectively trying to look at Keen and Minor like in a vacuum, I've hosted both of them multiple times. And I've actually hosted winning games of Keaton and Minor. So I've seen how they've been able to navigate to the end. Part of my dog is still being rude. I've seen them both be able to navigate all the way to the end of a game before. So I've seen the way that they function and how they react to adversity and different situations. And while Minor played the more competitively driven game in the series that I hosted him in, Keaton was no slouch either. So I knew Keaton was a very capable competitor. And in a game like this, especially when you have to kind of clutch up at the end, and it kind of comes down to how the collect or the challenge, what circle it favors. I think Keaton was able to pinpoint what relationships in each circle he needed to foster, he needed to tend to for him to be able to be safe in a multitude of different scenarios. So if his circle was ever shut out, then he still had avenues. He can go to Lake or Buckley and he'd give them incentive to save him and his circle. He'd go to Cody and Timmy, try to have them consider saving him as well. I think he in politically positioned himself very well to where nobody was really looking at him, although maybe as a tempting target, was something that wasn't really practical for a lot of people, or at least didn't make sense for them to enact, at least earlier on. Like there was, I think, a couple opportunities to have gotten rid of a member of a circle multiple times. What, Evelyn survived on the block twice, Chloe twice, I believe, up until this point. Like, and Keaton was never on the block. I think he's the only person to never be on the block, period, all game. If I could be wrong in that statistic as well, and I think that's very impressive.
No.
That's not accurate.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Clock that.
Well,
too.
I was gonna go over statistics with you guys, just so you guys could talk about that as well.
T.
So what was Keaton nominated?
After the tie.
He was. He was
Right.
I wasn't there again.
initial
just know,
nom.
like,
Ever
Buckley was.
initial nom.
I guess it's with me, with the both of them. It's like I feel like I work with Keaton. I did work with Keaton more, but we didn't work that much together. We just kind of communicated better, and I kind of early on extended an olive branch out to minor, and I feel like it wasn't really picked up that well, and I was down to game with new people who I haven't played with, and I feel like I don't know, we didn't get that chance, and we just had here and there conversations, but Keaton and I could have, as much as we had here and there conversations, they kind of were just more than that. Like they expanded, we talked more game, etc. We didn't even necessarily work with each other, but we talked game, filled in pieces. Like I don't know, helped each other out with other information, I guess. Whereas it was none of that. I feel like Minor had an idea who they wanted to work with, and it was that. I definitely did feel more isolated, even though I wasn't working with both of them fully.
I think I had that criticism about them because, like, I remember when, because obviously Eric, they joined the jury, and I was like, oh, okay. But then I saw like in Buckley join, and I saw both Timmy and Minor make it to Final Four together. So a part of me was like, am I being bitter for like n noting the irony, the coincidence that they both made it to the Final Four, that they may have because I again I hosted them both
Well,
together.
I
So
don't
like
know
I
if
never
anyone else heard this, but I don't know where I heard this from, so I can't really. I don't know if I'm gaslighting myself, but I heard there was a final alliance between Keaton's three when Chloe was still in the game with Chloe, Minor, and Keaton, and Cody and Timmy. Like that was a five alliance. So I kind of am curious to see if that was actually a thing or not, or I just made that up. Because if that was a thing, people were telling everyone in the game like, "Oh, Minor and Timmy will go after each other." Blah blah. They were saying it themselves, but then they actually just never did until they had to. It's kind of like,
it could
like
have
was that alliance just a thing, and they were just trying to plan the game out? That'd be something I'm curious to know.
like I trust that they didn't intentionally do this and only intended to take each other far just off the sole fact that they're together. And I want to believe that because I've hosted them before and I saw the game develop in a way to where it benefited them to work together and they had an opportunity to take each other to Final Two and they didn't. They took the shot at each other at Final Four, actually left the door open for the other to get sniped at three, which didn't happen. Timmy ended up winning the season. So I trusted and I have faith that they weren't entirely doing that, but there was a part of me that was wondering because I see, like I mentioned, his relationship with Keaton. Obviously, he has a good relationship with Buckley. Has some good rapport with him. I think Keaton and Minor are just very well just entrenched in the community in general. So I do not know how the people who either don't play games as much or aren't all that commonly playing or active in the community, um, what kind of relationships they had because they I don't know. That was something that's definitely has I will definitely ask. Like, I'm looking at all your allies. I'm just like, yeah, like in other games, I've seen you work with these people. It's like, what about the people you don't see that often? Like, how did you use those relationships and your strategy and your navigation through the game? So yeah, but I want to hear Lake's beautiful voice again. It's been way too long. It's been far too long, and I'm sad.
I want to hear statistics.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Weren't we supposed to hear that?
I'm getting them for you right now. Give me 1 second.
I'm so sorry, Gorgina.
If you cross multiply and then get the two, and you put it over the 7, you get the answer. Like,
It's because I was keeping track of the season, and then I got out, and then I said I don't care anymore. And so I had winning percentages and stuff like that, but then that's outdated. That's from when the round before I got out, I think. Yeah, 'cause Cody was 8-0, and that's clearly not right. But I don't know. Do we talk about well, in the meantime, I'll at least talk about my relationship with Miner. Miner's a sweetheart. Miner is someone who often in the games, like when you see him, it's like, oh, Miner could do no wrong, but Miner knows what the hell he's doing. Miner plays it up for sure that he's an innocent little bean, and a lot of people will watch this video and castrate me for me sounding like I'm questioning it, which I'm not, I think he's a great guy. But I definitely think that he is way smarter than a lot of people lead on, and I see him in a bunch of games face little adversity or very little opposition because you can't vote off Miner. You just love Miner so much. It's like at the beginning of the game, I felt good with him just off the fact that I think Miner brings this air of trustworthiness and authenticity that comes with him. So his social game, I think, was great just off of that alone. Just there's people who just thrive in these type of games in this type of setting where it's just based off of personality. They just light up a room whenever they show up in it, and Minor was that. But the only thing that I'm really questioning is the strategic elements of the game, because I'm trying to, unless they really wanted Lake and Buckley out specifically, like Minor voting off Keaton to ensure that it tied again during the final 6 round, I think was a really that could have been a critical error. Like it panned out, it worked out for him. And he's in the final 2 right now, but did he really need to take that risk? I say take out Cody and Timmy, probably stronger competition in that type of challenge where Jeremy's sending all those gifts, and I know that's not what the challenge was based off of, but I was thinking there was some type of game trivia, some type of studying component, and I felt that Keaton and Minor were the favorites, and taking out Cody, who I know for a fact was studying, was way better for his game. So I definitely would want to ask about that decision because that seemed
like
like a choice.
the payoff for me would have been way more if Minor, like, was Keaton the one that got them into the final 2? So
Mhm.
like Minor makes the decision, and then it's like, okay, well, you did that decision. Now get yourself and your own partner to the final 2. Like, not that, like, I don't know. It's just like it would have been like a in Survivor, like you have the immunity necklace and you give it to do the fire making challenge. You should win the fire making challenge to show like finesse your move. It's like, oh, you did it so your partner can get it to the end, yeah. But like you could have failed drastically, as Jacob said, and not made it at all. Because Cody and Timmy were viable, very strong, balanced competitors.
I'm looking at the stats and they sent it to us in the jury chat right now. Keaton got into 5 collectives, and Minor got into 7, um, which is kind of lower than I expected. Because what I remembered, like in the game, like before I had left, I could have sworn Keaton and Minor had been in more by the time of my departure. And I'm looking back at like my chart that I had, and by the time I left, Keaton was in 4. So after I left, he only won into 1 more collective, and that was the final one. No, no, 2.
I don't. I think that maybe even just goes to show how much like, well, we said yes, Minor has these social connections, but like Keaton had this physical, from my perspective, like this comp beast. Like Keaton can win comps, but Keaton got saved all the time due to their social connections and their circle. So Keaton didn't have to win as many collectives, but still got saved due to their connections in the game, kind of, where Minor got in and got to save people. It's hard to weigh.
So he won 3 by the time I went out. Minor had won 5, and like that's right. I guess I know I felt surprised by the number here because that means he had to have been saved more times than he was actively being like just qualifying for the collective. I think what minor won half of the collectives because it's 14 trials in total. Or if I'm not mistaken, if my math is mathing correctly. No, I'm a dumbass. It's 12. I don't know what the fuck I'm
There was
thinking.
14 trials, yes.
Oh, it was 14. Because the live nights. Got it. I was like, I saw 12. I thought I was a dumbass. But no, like that really comes to show, like Noah said, it's the social game and the how many people really trusted Keaton. Because most of these times he was saved, it wasn't people from his own circle just saving him for the sake of ensuring the rest of his circle was secured. It was other people outside of his circle wanting to build inroads with Keaton. I feel like because I remember I think it was the round Evelyn went out where AJ, Eric, Cody were all telling me who they're considering, and they all said I'm considering Keaton alongside somebody else. And that kind of demonstrated to me that a lot of people felt really good with Keaton for them all to be considering maybe I save Keaton here. That's definitely someone I'm not opposed to saving.
Especially since the round after y'all left. I don't know, like, if this is true, but like, do you feel like Keaton was closer to y'all and Buckley than Cody and Timmy? Yeah, so like people like I was pitching Lake to go. I'm not like Keaton to go like the round you after you and Laura went, and I was like, come on, like we have the opportunity, like set it up, even the round after. But they had connections with Cody and Timmy and Keaton and Lake, to save them both times. So it's like if they didn't have that, like I don't know. If it wasn't for like the connection with Lake and like Keaton wouldn't have been there, the tie like things wouldn't have lined up the way. People wouldn't have advocated for each other. Keaton was that one vote to save Lake and Buckley that one time, and then the one person to actually consider like put motion in like advocate for the flip like I don't know, So it's like, whereas was there that much strategic movement or thinking from Minor, verbally expressed like in these rounds? You know what I mean? Or was it like,
Here's
oh,
about
I'm
six
safe?
weeks. Yeah, because like aside from like his relationship with Timmy, I'm trying to think of like because I think there's a lot of understated relationships that Keaton was able to maintain during the game that a lot of people weren't really pointing out. I noticed the Keaton being close with that circle of people, but I just assumed the only bridge to that circle was Buckley. I was like, okay, probably Keaton and Buckley. I never saw Keaton and Lake as a duo, as somebody who was confidants with one another, comparing notes, always trying to like try to get the lay of the land, if you will. But I really want to hear from Minor what noteworthy relationships he was able to forge during the game. Like who he was able to come to, or if not, he played a completely different game because, I think having alliances, inter circle alliances, I think is a huge risk unless you for sure know the makeup of the other circles. Because if it's with uncertainty, it's just people you genuinely like and just people you just want to work with. There's a chance that multiple circles all know about this information. And, kind of the example when Buckley leaked the alliance with, AJ and all of them, because AJ told him about it. There was more of a likelihood for that to be leaked. So maybe Minor recognized that really coming off as schemy, trying to play super aggressively, strategically, I think wasn't going to benefit him at all. And instead, he was going to strictly work on the physical game and the capital he may gain from being able to be in the collective and saving people and playing the social game to where he's charming and affable enough of a presence where he is not the primary target. There were still other people, myself, Cody, AJ, who were getting into the collectives as much as we were that shielded him. And he got rid of them or at least got rid of me and AJ when he didn't need to, and was able to slide by. No one was talking about him as some physical threat because there were other more, yeah. Keep-
I think the golden path to winning this game is with maneuvering the end game, it's strategicness instead of physicalness, because like you can physical it out, you can win the comps, but like it's like 4 comps left, you gotta fucking win them. So like strategicness, you're safe. And I feel like at one point, maybe when Jacob and Laura went, Keaton wanted me and Buckley in the 4, And I'm sure Miner, assuming off of game movements, wanted Cody and Timmy in the 4. And when that became the 6, I look at who had the most responsibility with that, having that be the 6. And I honestly I give it to Keaton because, like, Keaton was reaching out to both circles and making an effort with both circles and felt really good with both circles. And Minor felt good with one. He didn't have a really strong relationship with me and Buckley. So we were kind of just relying on Keaton for that. So that's just kind of how I feel with the end game things right now. I feel like Keaton played the better end game between the two.
Yeah, and it's even like subtle things. Like even when Eric and I were nominated going the day of, like Keaton was still talking to me, kind of like that. Like subtle things. Like it doesn't. You don't think at the moment it'll make a difference, but like those lasting things. Like oh yeah, like I don't think it was strategic, but like it was a genuine relationship bond, and like that meant more. And like it wasn't like that from Minor, but like with Minor, I did feel like Minor got far in the competition based off my general perception of them. They had a nice warm aura. Like I said in my project, like, oh my god, I love Minor. Just their energy is infectious. Like just from like not being able to call them one-on-one, but seeing them on the live nights and everything, I feel like that got Minor further in the game, and then they could just win out the competitions. Like, yeah, but I agree with Lake where you kind of have to have a mix. And like it was kind of too little too late for me at that final 4, like right before the last one where you like vote your own partner out. The one I don't know. It didn't make it didn't make sense. And I want to hear the thought process genuinely to try to understand.
And to piggyback off that, when I got sent home, here's the thing: the round I was honestly frustrated at the circle as a whole because like they had a limited amount of time, they had to little time to consult one another, and it was public knowledge what the circles were up until that point. So like I knew Minor, Chloe, Key, and were consulting with one another like in some way, like how do we organize this in a way that benefits us. Um, and I call Minor, I'm assuming before that that meeting or whatever may have happened, and he seemed to be uncertain. But Keaton just kept it straight up. Keaton was blunt. Well, to be fair, he was wrong in his assessment that I was with Noah, but he was like, I think you're already getting Saber. You want to be fucking for real? And then by the time I told him, no, that's not what's happened here. I felt Keaton was as respectful as he can about it. I was like, look, man, I see it makes no sense for me to change my save. You can go to Minor and do it. I think that is the best avenue to convince you to whatever, um, and kind of put the responsibility or the fault of me being on the block kind of on Minor at that point. And I don't know how deliberate that was. That definitely could have been strategic. Like, hey, like I'm gonna be blunt with you. I've already confirmed with who the hell I'm saving that I'm saving them. So if you want a chance to be able to stay in this game, you got to go to Minor because that's probably the person he preferred at that point to have, for comp reasons, as his final 2. That definitely could have been a factor in his strategy. But I generally just felt more positive about Keaton leaving out, who like actually put in an effort not only consistently throughout the season in talking to me, but that really demonstrated more to me. I think Keaton understood that I was on the jury. He told me like how it was, and I respected that a lot more than Minor, who I think is just a very kind person. Let me preface that. Let me say I have no shade to him on a personal level, but I feel like there was a bit more passiveness, in his approach and how he was able to talk about the game and who he was saving and whatnot. Like, I don't know.
And like you said, like if Minor wasn't passive, maybe that would have put a bigger target on Minor's back earlier on, and Minor wouldn't have even been in this position. So it's like, who's just like, yeah, it's hard. I'm curious.
And one interesting thing that I noticed in the stats, it's crazy because I was looking back at this on my doc as well. Um, he in because like because depending on how you determine who won competitions, because like you could say like, oh, you made it to collector, that means you won a competition, you won a challenge, but like there was a point where being ninth meant you were in the collective. So like I think it's very hard to say, oh, Minor won the first challenge when he was ninth. But, like if we're talking about being first place, he only won the last one. That was it. Everything else, either he had to get saved, or yes, he made it into the collective, but he didn't win overall. And I think that best demonstrates just how, yes, he was a capable competitor. He won competitions when he absolutely needed to. But more often than not, he used those social bonds, and hell, he may have been in such a good position. He may not even need to ask people to be saved. The people just told him, "Hey, I'm gonna save you. You don't have nothing to worry about." Like, as someone who had spent most of his stay in the collective, I never had to experience that. So I don't know how to play from that perspective. So both Keen and Miner can speak on that much more than me. So I definitely want to hear how they handled when they weren't in the collective, when they weren't immune, when their circle wasn't well represented in the collective, how they were able to have themselves be saved over their circle mates. Because, we talked about during the game how Evelyn, like, would have these very passive, low-key campaigns, but just be saved by just so many people. Like, clearly there was something going on behind the scenes in that regard. So the fact that Evelyn was on the block as much as she was shocking. So how were Keaton and Miner continuously being saved and not up for banishment, but their alternatives were? I really want to hear about them. But
Any final words, like?
Um, I have to see if Miner was more strategic about things if I consider voting him. But I'm excited to hear out both. And and yeah.
I think, oh, sorry. No, I know. I just saw no one mute, so Noah, you say your piece.
No, you're all good. I was agree. I was agreeing with like. I don't know. I was trying to fill the silence. I was just gonna be like, I agree. But Jacob, take it away.
Thank you, Noah. Um, Actually, something that I just kind of noticed. Now I'm like assessing all this in retrospect. I think Miner's approach was similar to my own. Like I felt that it was almost like playing like support to the rest of his circle. Like, hey, like I'm hearing that this person's gunning for my circle mates. Let me run to them and tell them, like, hey, like I'm hearing your names being thrown out there. We gotta save you. This is who you gotta talk to. I could easily see Miner having played that role and been maybe not the strongest on the strategic front, but re- reaping the benefits of the physical and social games, like physically, him being in as many collectives as he was in, he was able to gain social capital. Like, hey, like I saved you, you could save me. Like there was a very clear meta, like in like the early game when we were heading into like the mid game, where people were almost strictly saving people when the opportunity presented itself, who saved them just the round prior. And I think Miner was one of the most common saves when people were using that rationale. And, socially, I think he brought about a grace about him to where he was not opposing. He wasn't someone who was this humongous threat. He was just someone that a lot of people were endeared to in the game. So I would prefer, the winner to have a good balance of all three, and I definitely would have. I was ready to face that criticism if I ever got to the end, somehow, some way. But now I'm actually really thinking about it. There's a lot of similarities to Miner's game, and I can kind of see it. I hope that there's factors or components to Miner's game that were deliberately being hidden. Because there's many times where like we try to downplay our strategy, we're trying to downplay our positioning, we're trying to downplay our role in certain votes, and a lot of people talk about big moves, but I think it's also the subtle moves. It's the small, the minute actions that honestly make a huge difference in the game. And understanding people's personalities and understanding people's, how they handle certain strategic decisions, plays just as much of a factor as making some boisterous move or orchestrating a blind side. That has just as much merit. So I think Miner, while may not be the favorite according to what some of the other jurors who weren't attending here were expressing and sharing, I do think that Miner does have a chance definitely getting my vote. But I know you
Yeah.
raised your hand, so clearly you want to say something.
No, I was just gonna say, would you say that it's not always about maybe like the bigger moves in the game, but maybe the minor moves?
I cannot believe.
I
I'm
can't
about
believe
to
I didn't
remove
notice that
Noah
earlier.
from the Zoom.
I could have swooped on, taken the used that pun. It never came.
Lake
It's
wants
the
to punch
minor,
me.
subtle. I was using all the words except for minor, and that upsets me. I used subtle.
You said
I used minute. I didn't use
minor.
that's fine.
Wait, no, you said minute. I'm guessing. Anyways, who's gonna be Lake or wait? No, Lake's not in the final two.
Like
wish.
could have been, like should have been.
Oh.
I would have been very happy with that. I don't
Me putting a Lake on the ballot. Keaton or minor? Keaton or minor? Who's
You
gonna
almost
be?
forgot.
I know. I just said their name. Yeah. Is there more to the round table? Did I just finish it or?
Well, to be fair, there's only 3 of us. It's like it's
I
very
have
tough.
one quick question for y'all. In like 3 words, max 5, Jacob. 3 words to 5. Love ya. Most important thing that you're thinking about for your vote. What in 3 to 5 words, what is the most important thing to you? Noah.
Social.
Social, love it. Lake.
Strategy.
Mm. Jacob.
I ain't saying shit.
Outwit.
You're not gonna answer my question?
Wait,
Oh, that's fucking
You ruined my mood, Lily. Just
no.
I said that with
Wait.
love.
Jacob went over his max words too. He found a way to go over his max words.
Wait, that was 8. Max 9. No, Lily, it ultimately comes down who maneuvered these rounds the best, who adapted, who played with their heart, but also with their brain symbiotically. And we're gonna have to crack it down. You know, it's the collective baby, the circle. No, it's the collective baby, and you never know what's gonna happen. So
I love that. I feel like, even though I know some of you are more settled in your vote maybe than others, like I like that you guys are coming in with like some open energy. You have questions for them. It seems like I know of the 3 of you here. So I'm definitely excited to see what happens tomorrow night.
I'm actually now that I'm thinking about it, because since it is Keaton in the final 2, part of me wants to like spin a wheel, maybe flip a coin, see if that. I'm
Ooh,
gonna give them more courtesy than that, but the temptation
oh,
is right
flip
there.
a coin.
I'm
I'm
curious about this. If roles were flipped, so this does have something to do with something, and it was the first 2 that were out instead of Keenan and Minor, who would y'all vote to win between Evelyn and Chloe?
I would rather a victim jury. That's the hardest decision I'd ever make in my life.
So wait, all the first 2 people out from each of our circles in this jury in this scenario, or are we still all? Everything's the same except it's Evelyn and Chloe instead of Keaton.
Why do you have to make it so complicated? Just
Look, I mean, you're the one asking this question that has nothing to do with Keaton and my feet. So I'm just asking about the logistics. I just want to know the optics of this question.
I'm voting for Chloe because she gave me Monopoly Go cards.
That's so real. I probably also faced the same. It's a different one because I felt much close personally to Chloe and Evelyn than Keaton and Minor.
Any hoodles.
Any
We're a
hoodles.
little off topic here.
See, that's why I said I was like, I'm trying to. But yeah, no, but yeah, no, it's weird because I felt closer to the 2 of them, and this has to do with Keaton and Minor, because I'm gonna tell them straight up, like I'm gonna be so real. I was closer to your other 2 circle mates, and they spent more of their time here on the block than not, like together, than y'all, and y'all were often voting and people I could have collaborated with in the game, but I just never felt like I was much of a priority for either of them. So to answer your question, Lake, as much as like, yeah, like I don't know the answer to that question because that requires so much context and so many things to have happened for those 2 to be the last 2. That's actually something now that I genuinely want to ask. I'm like, look, I felt closer with both Evelyn and Chloe than you two. Like, how do y'all feel? But
Anything else
I'm
anybody
gonna
wants
vote for
to air?
Sierra.
Oh, Slay, Sierra Queen. Congrats on getting engaged, Sierra. I feel like I
Congrats,
don't say
Sierra.
it
I,
enough.
I honestly I didn't even know she was engaged. So
Dare you not know?
engaged to who? Who's the lucky person?
I'm not gonna air her fiance's name all over YouTube.
Not fucking 3
Not
bits of
today.
heaven.
From
So
doxing
everyone else
Sierra's
watching this can celebrate.
fiance.
I
Period.
have one other question for y'all. What alliances do you think we've talked some about some alliances like outside of like your circle? Obviously, there's some allegiance to your circle, but other than your like circle group, what alliances do you think were out there? I know a few have like been publicly talked about, but what do y'all think?
What's the character limit to this question, Lily? Is it 5 words again for me?
I didn't specify that time. Just be reasonable.
Did you say what alliances are out there? I didn't hear the last part.
Yeah, just what alliances did you think existed? Like official alliances.
The Fab Five. Keaton.
The
Damn.
Fab Five.
It was. That's what Eric said it was called.
I'm pretty sure it's called the Fantastic.
Buckley, save us.
I gotta
Keep
go.
What
on.
alliances were out there?
It was the Fantastic Five, and Keaton Minor. Well, here's Timmy. What Timmy? It was Keaton. It was Keaton Minor, Timmy Cody. That's all.
I think Ian Circle and
Wait,
your
Timmy-
Circle Lake all
Timmy's
made an
cooking.
alliance called Grateful with an A instead of the A in the word, and that was the majority alliance of the season. That's why.
Oh, and then there was me, Keaton, and Fred. That too.
So, welcome, Timmy and Buckley. We are discussing what alliances existed in the game outside of your, obviously, your circles. What alliances were out there?
Well, there was the buffoonery of the 5, and then there was the final 4 was an alliance. I knew that.
Yes, and before the final 4, before Minor was in the alliance, it was with Evelyn instead of Minor.
Yeah. Which
Wait, are you talking about the Final Four or the Finale Four?
they're the same.
What?
The final
Oh,
4.
because the alliance that me and Noah were in, we're called the finale for. That's the joke. That's
How are we supposed to know that?
Whatever
but no, that's
whatever lets you sleep better at night, I guess.
Okay, Mr. 30 minutes late. Don't get sassy with me right
I'm
now. at this
sorry
hour.
that I'm so sorry that my friends were inquiring about what RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars was
No,
like. I had
Timmy,
to
you can eat. I wasn't coming for Timmy. Timmy needs to eat.
Oh no,
So
I know
was
you weren't
coming
coming for me. I'm just excited to talk about my food.
No, it looks so good. Dude.
but no.
Are we just gonna recap? We've been talking for hours in here.
So to try to catch y'all up. So basically, we were just talking about likelihood, what cases that there are, what questions we want to particularly ask them. From what we were talking about here, I think that Keaton is the favorite, and I don't want to speak on everybody's behalf, but from like the when we were calling last night, that seemed to be where a lot of people were leaning. The question came up of if like Minor had specific reservations for people to make it to the end, like outside of the game, like whether or not because it seemed as though like there's a lot of relationships we highlighted with Keaton, Keaton's relationship with Lake, Keaton's relationship with you, Buckley, Keaton having a lot of his ends tied up a bit more so than Minor, but relatively we're all open. I know Lake's a big Keaton stan, but we're at least
that is a big thing that I also felt too, is that Keaton was way more open, and I felt like a lot of times, and Minor wasn't the only person like this in the game that I felt, especially towards that latter half of the game. Minor was very like dead set on what he wanted to do and wouldn't even entertain an option. But the difference between like when Timmy and Cody were very upfront about it, Minor lied to me the entire day leading into the final 9 vote, saying that he was voting with us, that he was doing this, he was doing that. Like, it didn't like, and not like I was gonna whip out an idol or anything, like to save Lake. So like it didn't really necessarily like matter, especially if in his eyes, like it's a clean sweep. You know what I mean? Like he was giving false hope, like from his perception that like so I don't there were things, and then between that and the move to say like the him voting against Keaton and like how that could have really been super vulnerable, because who's to say that Lake and I were telling the truth of what we were gonna do? Like I have a lot of questions about some of his decisions and how he thinks they were gonna impact like his game, especially knowing that there's a high chance that I have to vote for him to win.
I was about to say, I did mention that as well, like earlier on, just like obviously that decision, because I've been keeping loose track of the game ever since I had left, and I've been out for a minute. So I heard about like a tie. And I was like, oh, wow, how the hell did Lake and Buckley end up in here? And then hearing how it happened, it was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like now that we have more people who were involved in the tie here, we should talk about the tie round. Like, what do we think about that from both Keaton and Miner's perspectives?
Keaton's makes sense. Miners doesn't really make sense.
Yep. That's exactly it. Keaton
Pretty much.
was like now, like I guess I don't know how much Lake touched on this. How much
Give me
did he
a clue.
touch on the tie? How much
I
did he
don't,
touch on?
we haven't really talked about the tie at all yet.
So like
That's why
Keaton,
I asked.
Keaton's okay. I just making sure I'm not hitting on things that Lake has already hit on. We basically had to like Keaton was always willing to play ball with it. So like Lake and I had to basically pitch the exact opposite to Cody to make Cody think that like if we were going to like take out like Keaton and Miner. Now the entire time I personally would have rather Cody and Timmy left, but I knew I wasn't really in a position to do that. So we just had to play Cody really hard. So I would have thought that when actually Cody went and did it, that at that point, like at least our thought process was Miner has to vote Timmy or whoever the fuck was on the block. Miner had to vote against that duo, and then Cody had to vote against the other. Because at that point, it's literally your life in the game. And like I don't know why you'd want to risk that potential. You know what I mean? Like that literally, like
The only thought that makes sense to me in regards, sorry, finish your thought. I fully interrupted.
if no, you're fine. If I had done what like the internal, if I didn't think I was gonna tie it myself, because that's what I thought it was gonna do if I voted for Timmy, I thought it was gonna tie, or not Timmy, for Keaton, it was gonna tie. But had I known that Miner was gonna do that, and I did that, like that would have been game over. So I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
So my thought process with the only way I see it making sense, and it depends on how he explains it, is if it was a more of a fuck you to Keaton, like, oh, you did this against me, and like this point, you don't get to win either. And honestly, I find that funny.
To piggyback off Timmy, I kind of mentioned like I see the money shot where it's like that, like fuck you, Keaton. And if Miner won the final competition, be like, I got us to final two, that could have been like a cherry on top thing. Like it wasn't all dependent on Keaton. It's like I got us here. I didn't need you. You screwed, like it's like it was kind of
I mean,
trying
Miner
to
won more of the end comps rather than Keaton did beyond that 5-4-1. So.
yeah, Miner won set or however many more than Keaton too. And they won the same amount kind of early on as well.
Yeah.
So they both had a section where they got saved by people, whether it be in their circle or not early on or not. And then Miner kind of went on a win.
I don't know if
midway
y'all
through.
saw in the jury chat, Timmy and John, before you joined, other Timmy also dropped like statistics for both
yes.
of them.
I saw that. I saw that. What I will say to retaliate the rebuttal, to that, the thing that I saw heavily in their games though, like, and this maybe was a detriment to Minor winning all of those, is that Keaton made the bonds with people, even if he wasn't in like an alliance with them, he made the bonds with people and like really like gave, weighed all his options. Like if Minor and had, if Keaton had followed the path that Minor had, I don't know if they'd be there because Minor played a lot more closed off. Like he had the people he was going to work with, and that was decided. Like that was it. Like those are like he didn't have open options. He wasn't really willing, and when he was, acting like he wasn't being honest and truthful with it.
Mhm.
So like I think that the narrow-minded gameplay in this, like there's a balance that you have to do with this game, and especially with the layout of it. And I think Keaton rode that really well. I don't think they would be in the two if Keaton didn't play the social game that he did. Genuinely.
Yeah, and like it's like how we talked about, like if Minor didn't play as passively as they played too socially that way, would Minor even still be in that position? If they up their social game, would they be more of a threat? Or if they downplayed it even more, would they have been eliminated even early? Whereas like Keaton played that line so well, like I said this, Eric and I were on the block, we were set to go home. Keaton was still like talking to me in the day and having just like that conversations, and like it was like the little things that like stick with you like that when we talk about in this game where relationships are important to us. Like those little things kind of matter when you're thinking about it at the end of the day, how much actually, I don't know, someone's put into your game relationship and relationship in general too.
And I was mentioning right before you guys joined that like and maybe this is a hot take, a super weird thing for me to say, but I feel like I got more from Evelyn and Chloe than I feel like I got from, to be fair, either of the two, and this isn't just a criticism on Minor as well, but I think a lot of people portrayed Chloe as like, oh, she's super inactive, she's an easy boot, we could get rid of her at any time. All right, Evelyn also had her mind made up and was only talking to people or making an effort with the people she wanted to work with, and yet I feel like I got more from the two of them, and they were often not, well, I think they were both nominated 3 times,
Mhm.
as opposed to Keen and Minor, who I don't think were in danger at any point from while I was, yeah, so yeah, thank you, Jeremy, for verifying. Whereas Keen and Minor were always voting, like during my stay there. So like that was something that I've always felt a bit weird about their games, or at least my relationship with them specifically. They're not obligated to talk to me, obviously. It's also up to me to initiate those conversations. But like I felt that even if I knew Keaton wasn't particularly close with me, we could still have a productive conversation. I didn't feel like I could have that with Minor. So
Mhm. I'm gonna get going so I can finish my dinner. I just wanted to hop on for a
enjoy
little
your
bit.
dinner, Tiffy. You deserve
Eat
all the
it.
things that you
It
want in life.
looks so good.
It's so good. It's so good. But I'll see y'all later.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
I'll see y'all tomorrow.
But I don't know. I feel like I've expressed everything that I've wanted to express during this roundtable. I didn't know what my question was going to be. I figured out what that is. Obviously we can coordinate that, after the roundtable one. Now, like, what if anybody wants any specific questions or anyone needs to go earlier. But I really think that this can be open to the performance. Like who's more able to articulate their game, to speak on their contributions, to get the circle there, because they both had to work symbiotically with one another. We all came into the game knowing the only 3 people we could possibly make final 2 with, and Keaton and Minor were able to do it with each other. And so I kind of want to see what roles they each played in getting them both to final 2. Because like when we're doing Survivor and Big Brother, like even if the final 2 or final 3, they're all very close with one another, they still had to get themselves there first. And whomever also made it to the end, and how rounds played out and who won whatever the hell challenge plays a factor into this. But Keen and Minor had to get both of them to that point. So who is more to a credit in their success in getting there? Was it Keaton's political game or was it Miner's physical prowess? And whatever people want to reward is really up to them because there's no this is a new format. No one knew how to play this beforehand. We had no blueprint. We had no precedent up until this point. So like we can't draw any parallels or say like, oh, well, this person did this person on this season and that we could do this, we can whatever the hell. We've all had to experiment in some way. So I can't fault any strategic downside because like we don't know how to play the game, and Keaton and Miner, whomever wins, I would hope that sets a precedent for future seasons of the collective. Like I want to do what this player did. I think they made the blueprint for future players. So I think we have a strong final two. I I'm not entirely decided, although I do lean towards Kean in this scenario. Um, I can't wait to see. I think it's gonna be a battle. I know that they're both really good players. Very different strengths. It's a very interesting final two, and I can't wait to see what happens. I don't know if anyone else has anything they'd like to say, but I think I'm pooped. Like I think I've said everything I could have needed to say.
I don't really know what else I would say. I mean, I'm definitely leaning one way more than the other. Um, just from my personal experience in the game. That's not even me being bitter. There's a lot of questionable decisions from my perspective that were made that I can get clarity on, but I'm also pretty adamant in how I feel, which is like horrible to say, but I need like a compelling argument. I need like Noah, that's disgusting. I need you to please get rid of that. I need a really compelling argument for mine at this point.
I will say, yeah, if Minor puts on a show, sorry, Buckley, like if puts on a show and persuades me, takes those persuasion classes and convinces me, like who knows? I'm gonna be high, so like
Like,
What time is it tomorrow night?
that was
We're gonna send you a Zoom link at 10:15 EST.
Okay.
Miner will be on his way home at that point, and then as soon as he hops in the Zoom, we'll get started.
Oakley dokley.
Be there for the whole thing, period.
If no one else has anything to say, I can stop the recording.
Unless like
I just don't want to cut y'all off.
I don't really
I'm done.
I don't have anything else really to add. I don't really know what else to add, to be honest.
Does Prod have any more questions before I cut the recording?
I'm good. Y'all should watch the video I posted.
I did.